We're talking about, you can go to the next slide. We're talking about our community-based economics pillar. And here it is displayed. I did some highlighting on it to highlight the pertinent points. We're going to try and unpack it this evening a little bit. There's lots of different ways you can go. But this is actually in my wheelhouse of how I made my living for a long time. I was a traveling contract worker. I was a laboratory manager who moved around the country. Basically, I designed, built, remodeled, and moved clinical laboratories, which is actually kind of a complex little job. Enough complexity that my predecessor usually tore their hair out and left, leaving an open position for me to come in and try and finish it up. Next slide. So we're going to redesign our work structures, and businesses oscillate back and forth between management and labor kind of getting along, and other times not so much. But we're heading into probably another period of labor shortage. So management's going to be very lovey-dovey there for a short period of time, and then they'll oscillate back. But managers as well as employees always want to talk about working on the efficiency and the appearance of the workplace. It benefits both the boss and the employees. And we want to impress our clients and customers. If you've got a workplace where they come into, and it's got to be kind of a wow experience. And we want to manage the ergonomics of the work areas. I did quite a bit of work on that. Where sitting at a desk is grueling work in the long run. And those of us that have reached my age, if you move your neck around, it feels like they replaced your spinal column with some kind of a breakfast cereal. So it takes a lot of wear and tear. And so getting a work area that has the right seat and the right desk and the position of your keyboard and where your video display is on your computer is actually vital important to your health in the long run. We want to talk a little bit about improving the safety of a workplace. We ran into a number of serious problems with that during the pandemic, where you had a crowded workplace and management was basically slow in getting personal protective equipment in place, masks and shields. And there were a lot of problems, such as the meat packing plants, places where people are crowded together and working shoulder to shoulder, and spreading the virus through the workplace. And what's happened recently is working from home in the pandemic. And my lovely wife over there is somebody who started doing this really about a year before the pandemic. We have an office in the basement, and she does her work in that office for St. Luke's. She's a nurse that pushes and prods and pokes at insurance companies to get them to pay their bills. And she sends out lots of phone calls and emails and research on the computer. And problems with childcare, although we're kind of coming into a recovery phase from the pandemic due to vaccination, really not everybody's recovering at the same rate. Minorities are not recovering at the same rate, and women are having trouble recovering. For example, for childcare reasons, is that many of the daycare centers are still closed and unavailable, and maybe kids are in school, so we have to take care of the kids at home. Next slide, please. So a lot of work there. Then one of the things I talked about was employee ownership, and this is an interesting thing to talk about and think about. Is that there's basically three types of employee ownership that are currently operating in the country. Employee stock ownership plans, where each pay period some of your money is withheld and put into a trust fund that buys the company's stock, and over a period of time you become a stockholder for your company that you're working for. It sometimes works not as well as they're advertised, but this is ideal for large companies on 40 to 50 employees and up. It's actually quite expensive to implement these. Worker cooperatives is one I think that the Green Party tends to gravitate to from my research. And these are cooperatives that are 100% employee owned, and people throw money into a hat, basically a little equity fee that's built into your membership there, and then you it's like a club where there's a board that's elected, makes all the decisions, and you run that operation at work. And the startup cost of this is actually quite reasonable. And the last is more I think designed for people who have corporations that are probably family owned and operated. This is a employee ownership trust where the family members probably have a long-term interest in the business and become owners over a period of time. And they get basically dividends as the company makes a profit. Slide. Workplace democracy is a fun one to talk about. The servant leadership concept is one that I bumped into a couple times. One that I think fits the Green Party very well in terms of from a management standpoint. That one of the questions that a leader in a servant leadership role would ask is how can I help you? What do you need? It's kind of an inversion of the normal way that people look at the hierarchy in a company where the servants are the leaders and they go around and they engage with the employees. And many of the employees that are working there have a very detailed knowledge of what they're doing, have innovative ideas, and if you can extract those out, it's a very successful approach for a company to take. Frequent communication with the employees, regular meetings to discuss operational issues. Slide. So the 10 principles of a servant leader is that they're listeners, they have empathy and healing. They don't really hold grudges, or they're not really seeking revenge or anything like that. Self-awareness, persuasion, conceptualization. They're good at forming a vision and working with the group to form visions of where we're going with all of this. And foresight, they're people who tend to look for the future. Slide. One of the things that's kind of dropped out of our society is the role of labor unions. And with the loss of the labor union went a large part of the middle class success. This was a political decision made by conservatives to fight this, and you've got the right to work for less laws. I think about 28 states now. And but I advocate from a Green Party standpoint, my own personal opinion, is that we really all need to be members of a union. And this even applies to retired people, I think, that you need somebody representing you, lobbying for you, and has the ability to go in there and talk to the Congress and present them with alternatives to what we're hearing from the conservatives. So portable health and retirement benefits, collective bargaining, portable unemployment benefits, and job search. I don't know if you've had the pleasure of dealing with an unemployment department lately, but they don't even answer their phones. I mean, it's really difficult in many states to get anything done with unemployment. And IRS is the same boat. I mean, they're not answering their phone either. They cut their staffing severely. Slide. So developing new economic activities and institutions. Small businesses represent almost all the game, 99.9, 99.7% of the companies. And they represent about 2/3 of the US jobs. So this other third of the jobs is represented by a very small percentage of the companies that are really huge. And they're the ones that do account for a lot of the new hires and turnover, and the really employees are not particularly loyal to them. And in many cases, they don't particularly enjoy working for these big guys. But a substantial amount of the workforce is provided by large companies. But keep in mind that 2/3 of the jobs actually are relatively small businesses in this country. Slide. hybrid working models, what's happening in our country is that they discovered something interesting with the pandemic. When you shut the economy down, about a third of the economy immediately disappears, and it's your average person going about doing their average task, going to the store and going to this place or that place. And when that halts, about a third of your economy just evaporates. And so it is a thing that we're experiencing a lot of change in hybrid jobs, such as my wife has working at home. And it's a real question about whether these companies that are occupying these high-rise office buildings will want to continue to pay the lease on those buildings, and doing the same things that they've always been doing with the little cubicles at work, and putting up with the drive to and from work and rush hour traffic and all the other problems that go by commuting to a job, when they've discovered that they can actually get their work done with alternative ways of organizing their labor force. Slide. We want to talk about in the Green Party the use of technology, and there's, of course, each one of these topics they write books on. But well, one of the things that's come up lately is the, especially in a time of pandemic, is the need for reliable internet services. I mean, people are meeting by Zoom meetings and other innovations. They were doing more and more online shopping and getting deliveries that way. And some of these trends, I think, are going to continue in our society. I don't think COVID-19 is going to go away very quickly, and I think our society will probably see some lasting changes that will last us a long time. Slide. So, economic security. You know, as I just recently retired and experiencing Social Security, I like it. Although I wish it was a little bit more profitable. There are days where I'm tempted to go back to work, but most of the time I just slap myself and say, no, you probably don't want to go back to work. But for most of our families are heavily dependent on Social Security. So any politician that's out there that's saying bad things about Social Security or wanting to make cuts in it deserve serious rounds of communication about what a rat they are, and we have to defend our social programs as much as possible. They're simply not old enough to remember how things were before many of the things that Social Security implemented are where people basically went home to die, and there were a lot of very few hospitals in the area. Medicare built a lot of those hospitals. It was built with federal money. So slide. Savings account. One of the depressing things that we have to deal with as Americans is it highlighted every adult should have enough money in savings to cover a minimum of 3 months of essential living expenses. Ideally, everybody should have 6 months worth. And that means that some people still have some work to do in our society. Hopefully, most of us are doing a little better than that. But we don't have a society that saves money very well, and it's kind of not in the incentives of our tax program to do that. And our savings account generally don't really earn any interest, and so there's really no compelling reason to hang on to money in a savings account that has essentially a zero return on the investment there. So it's a whole list of things, and basically what it's saying is that Americans really are very poor savers, and they're ill prepared for disasters. A slide. Living paycheck to paycheck. So 63% of the Americans are living paycheck to paycheck since COVID hit. And 2/3 of the people, you know, if they're only one paycheck away basically from disaster. And a lot of issues are still hanging out there they've been pushing this can down the road with mortgages and rental evictions, where They've managed to subsidize all kinds of big businesses and banks, but they haven't really got around to taking care of the landlords. And so we're likely to see at some point a lot of evictions and a lot of mortgages that get foreclosed upon. And the hit of homelessness would be completely intolerable. So the Dark Green Party should be talking about that almost on a daily basis. The fact that they leave these things hanging over the head. Put the dark economy in there. Hopefully I get another chance to give a talk. But the dark economy, one of the things that isn't talked about very much is the fact that during normal times, about 12% of our economy is actually a cash economy. And it flies below the wings of the IRS and most bank systems. The people are buying services and goods with cash. And so if you want your house painted, you can get your house painted a lot cheaper if you're willing to pay the guy $100 bills. And he doesn't have to claim it as income. He doesn't have to pay taxes on it. And it's very difficult to trace. So about 12% of our economy is actually conducted with just a cash basis exchange. Next slide, please. Job ethics, they put this in there, and the principle of hard work is intrinsically virtuous or worthy of reward, kind of a Calvinistic idea that they brought over from Europe, I think. Some of our settlers were really big on this kind of a work lifestyle. But they're clearly elements that anybody that employs anybody would want. Integrity, honesty, discipline, fair and respectful, responsible and accountable. And whether you're a Green Party member or member of any group, these are all qualities that are valued in all people, I think. Slide. So we want new definitions of work, jobs, and income. And so we're always looking at how can you boost the flexibility of work and make work resonate around the things that we value. And each generation comes out with a little different idea of what they need and want in terms of a lifestyle. And so some of our younger generations want more time on playing little video games and things like that. So everybody needs things like that. And we want to have a workplace that accommodates these things and removes the barriers that to keep us from having the lifestyle that we want. Maybe we're working too many days or too many hours. The management of the styles of the past are probably going to be changed and modified and as we go. So next slide, please. Cooperative and democratic economy. We want an economy that's value driven, and workers own the business perhaps and have a stake in the financial success, and a workplace democracy where workers have shared governance and actually are asked other opinions of how things are done in the company. Slide. Income distribution is a political decision that this country made about the time of Reagan or maybe a little before, where we were doing fine from about 63 to 79, where just about everybody was making at least 1.7% average income growth annually. And then it drastically changed from 80 on up to the present day, where most of the people are below that average income growth, except for you'll see a exponential curve there. It kind of runs off the chart on most graphs, where the very, very rich are actually, most of the money has already been transferred to the very, very rich. Slide. And that's a big issue for the Green Party, I'm sure. Restructuring our patterns of income distribution, looks at low and middle class and upper class income there. You can see that the middle class income was aggregately about 62%, and now it's less than it's about 43%. It's dropped below the upper income. So the upper income, which is a very, very small percentage of the population, are holding most of the money now. And the lower income, they're flat as a pancake. I mean, if you're in that lower income range, you've been basically getting the same paycheck for 30 some years probably. Check, slide. Income equality is rising. It's an upward trend there. That was a ratio between the 10% and the 90%, and it's the 10% upper income is winning, and we're also leading most Western style countries in the world. Slide. Our monetary, is it really another top? I mean, they write books on these subjects, but a lot of people don't realize the extent that our money is generated and created by the banking system. The way that it's loaned out actually creates money, and most of our money that exists with a few strokes of a keyboard rather than a printing press of some sort. Slide. Restricting the size of and the concentrated power of corporations. Boy, this sounds great. I don't know that anybody's been doing any of this since Teddy Roosevelt, but why do the large companies have so much power, and what kind of problems has that entered? Well, it's certainly affected each and every one of us in terms of abuse of workers and the corruption of our political system. Slide. And those of us taking responsibility. So they pitted the upper class and their corporations against the lower class that does the menial work. And the pandemic has instructed us that is the people that drive the trucks and deliver things and stock the shelves in the stores and take care of the necessity businesses are the heroes here, and they're the ones that kind of is sustaining our country. And you could say the very upper class are off somewhere having a really good time, making lots of money, but not having to deal with the crisis of the pandemic so much. Slide. And then so they want to cut the size and the power of the corporations, but we say on the other, but we don't want to discourage any superior efficiency or technical innovation. And that's a really tough balance to generate, especially when we've got such a serious crisis coming up where we may fundamentally need to change our society, and we need to save our planet from the effects of capitalism and the abuses that it provides. So we want to have that innovation because we're going to need it probably to deal with the climate change issues that are coming up. Slide. And that's really the end of the talk. I mean, it's this particular pillar, I think, has an awful lot of buzzwords and different concepts in there, each and every one of them. You could write a very large book on. And so we take one of these pillars that we're really proud of our platform, but really there's a lot in there. And so the details, devils are always in the details, and the Green Party needs to be telling people how to implement and how to solve these problems. So I thank you very much.